the single biggest update in all of Hearts of Iron 4. I'm not joking. They're adding coal to the game. We're getting a brand new resource. From the very beginning of the game, there was all the 5 or 6 primary resources. Steel, chromium, tungsten, oil, and rubber. The 5. Now, oil is kind of a weird one because it works differently. Rubber's kind of unique in a way because you can build it on the map. But the other ones are kind of like very static based on, I don't know, if you increase the resource gather rate by excavation or if you do prospect for resources, which I always think is not very cost effective unless it's some kind of long, big ass multiplayer game. But now we're going to have a new mechanic. And you know what that new mechanic is going to be? Are you ready for this? You better hope you're sitting down. It's coal. That's coal. That's a chunk of coal. They missed an opportunity here to not to use the Minecraft icon. But of course, I think that's copyrighted. Seriously, though. Kind of looks a little bit like a fossil. But of course, they want to make it look different to Minecraft, don't they? But anyway, there we go. We have Sardinia, and Sardinia contains 2 coal. Are you ready to go down those coal mines, boys? Do you yearn for the mines? It is a dev corner, meaning it is not a dev diary. It means it is a feature that they are projecting in the future, that there's no fully flushed out mechanics. It's something that's still work in progress. There's a chance that all these mechanics could be completely ignored in future, and they may backtrack on them completely. Unlikely, but there is a chance that these features may not work. Coal now is not just coal. It is energy. Energy, coal, coal, energy. Meaning it works similar to the way fuel works. I did actually forget about aluminium. There was another one, wasn't there? Got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh, forgive me, boys. I was 1 off. Anyway, we're going to have a new resource now, which is going to be coal / energy. It also does mention with oil getting a facelift, it manned the guns. Oh, it's basically talking about how features would changes throughout time. Once upon a time, guys, oil was just a standard resource that was used to create an object. So in the past, when you made a tank, it would have an oil requirement to just build it. Not use it, but just to build it. It's kind of strange to even think that was the way it works. So that means you put oil into a vehicle and it has perpetual fuel that lasts forever. Literally nuclear-powered tanks for every single one. Actually, that's not even true. Even uranium in uranium ships and submarines still has a resource of fuel, but they last significantly longer. Borderline unlimited. So what they're basically saying is that because we're calling it energy as well as coal, they're basically going to work interchangeably like fuel and oil currently do. So just understand there's a lot of interchangeable speak here. Oil and fuel are the same thing. Coal and energy are the same thing. You getting where we're going with this? Are you keeping up? Good. And of course, if you want more of this kind of content in future, you want to fuel up, then subscribe to this video and YouTube will give you more of this kind of content in future. And there's going to be some big updates, and this is one of the biggest anyway. So the core concept of coal and energy, you want to produce a potential soft limit on the current almost limitless industrial expansion. So have you noticed, like, for instance, mid to late game, particularly mid-game, if a nation's doing very well, they'll have so many opportunities to build civilian factories and military factories. It is perpetual production. There is no limitation to it. There isn't a certain point where you get 1,000 military factories where the game says, oh, well, at this point, you are pulling down the entire energy sector of your entire nation. There's no limit. You could just keep making mills indefinitely. The only thing there's a limitation to mill production is the amount of resources needed to produce the certain items. When it comes to civilian production, there's no limitation. Think about it. If you make civilian factories perpetually for the entirety of Hoi 4 for every single state, there is no limitation. There is no head limit. What this is going to do is create that limit. That's what it's doing. It is more of a limitation mechanic than it is just a plain old resource on the map. Let's explain. Increase the importance of expanding and securing raw resource bases in the game. It's obviously going to be a big one, particularly for Germany, because when you've maxed out all your building slots in your region, of course, there's going to be raw reason to expand. Plus, Japan, obviously the most resource-hungry nation, the reason to expand as Japan is going to give it more of a reason. I love Japan. By the way, Japan rumored to be looked at, adjusted, tweaked in the new expansion. They mentioned a previous dev diary. That wasn't a leak. They mentioned they're focusing on Asia and they mentioned Japan. So no leakerino. Anyway, this adds a limitation to civilian production as well. Moving on. It provides more interesting choices when it comes to economic laws, give more incentive to players to consider demobilizing at some point during the gameplay, and that war economy total mob is not always the one that is the right choice. So there is more of a downside to war economy and a bigger downside to total mode, because remember, total mode reduces manpower as well. We are not aiming to create a super complicated or overly complicated system for energy and economic model. That's really interesting. That one is the best line here, because this tells you this is less about a DLC and more about a free patch. Once again, that's always been the big debate with this. Is this DLC stuff or is this free patch stuff? Not confirmed, unknown, but it kind of leans more towards free DLC, being it's not an overly complicated system. It's just a limited system that reduces limitless expansion. And here we have Sardinia with the cool. Amazing. Sardinia with 2 coal at the beginning of the game. As usual, numbers are subject to change. Please do not despair yet. And okay, what do we have here? Let's just forget about this block of text. Just look at this. Well, we have peace, stability, war support, manpower, and we have fuel, we have supplies, and we have convoys. See, the green bar indicates fulfillment, right? 100%? 100%? Oh, 25%-ish for fuel, but... Oh, wait a minute. Wait a minute. What do we have here? So we now have a percentage for factories. Factories now don't have just a number next to them. They also have an energy requirement. And this works similarly to fuel. Coal is excavated just like any other resource in game. Each unit of coal that can have your own use, not traded away, will produce a set amount of energy. This then will turn into be used to power up your industry, your civilian or military factories or naval dockyards, which for ease, I'll be calling them in the dev diary such as factory. Each factory, regardless of type, has the same base energy demand. So what are you seeing in the top bar as industry size should also give you the very rough estimate. Yep. So this number is showing green and increasing, implying that you are producing more energy than you are consuming, so therefore adding to the stockpiles. Yeah. However, the base energy demand is not everything, as each factory you own will also introduce a little extra scaling cost to demand per factory. So is it going to be just a plain old base amount, or is it going to be a scaling amount? Because if it's scaling, that tells you that there is going to be an upper limit on factories, isn't there? It's just going to be a certain point that if you've reached the maximum limit of mills and sieves by that perpetual increase, that there might be a point where there's just no point making extra factories. But then it does add a question then, what are the civilian factories going to be used for? Which I've always suggested in the past that I think as the game progresses and your economy becomes more militarized, the civilian factories should naturally sap from your economy. But it's kind of the opposite, isn't it? As you go war economy and total mode, you actually have more consumer goods to work with. So it works the opposite to that. But I always thought maybe in the long run, there should be more of a drag on the economy because you can't do war economy forever. There should be a certain point where war economy reaches its limits, you know? I kind of like what they used to do in Black Ice, one of the old versions. The more mobilized you become, the more of your ticking war support and stability is going down. So you need to use political power to keep pushing it up to maintain your war economy. I always kind of like that mechanic. Economy laws will also have factory energy consumption modifiers. This will essentially increase or decrease of each factory, including the scaled proportion of size of industry. Could I actually do a world conquest on civilian economy? Why not, right? Higher mobilization laws will have an energy demand to represent how longer hours and more shifts. So let's try and make sense of this. So what this number means is energy demand. So on civilian economy, which thankfully now has a benefit, because remember, civilian economy was always a kind of a strange one, that it was basically all downsides with no upside. Now it consumes less energy overall. So if you are looking to min-max late game, it would kind of be better to kind of go for less energy consumption, right? But then the next question is, what is this second one? Oh, is this not consumer goods? But it does appear that that number apparently goes down as you become more mobilized. But, oh God, total mob is a bad one. 50% extra consumption. Do you know what? If these numbers are correct, which they're not, but 50% is too high. I personally think that war economy and total mode probably should be very similar. Then partial mode feels like a freebie at no extra additional consumption. The law picker will also proudly display the energy consumption modifier, which is the first one, so that you do not score through the tooltip to find the modifier. Before you start going crazy and guessing what the second number is, it is just the expected amount of consumer goods. The icon is currently placeholder-ish, as we haven't adjusted the previous icon yet. Oh, does it work? I'll start with a quick reminder how civilian, naval, and military industrial operate in different game currently. Especially each factory has a specific base amount of output in points, contributing daily to 2, 2.5, 4.5 collectively. And there's a further modified by all technologies, laws, ideas, ministers, national spirits, blah, 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 construction factors, etc., etc. Not mentioning production efficiency, as this was a unique to military factories. So it doesn't look like production efficiency plays a part in energy consumption, which it kind of should, but it would make sense because then it would make naval dockyards weaker, right? How will it operate in the Brave New World? Brave New World? Have they leaked the name of the new DLC there? So how will that operate in the Brave New World? Am I overly reading into this? What is this referencing, Brave New World? Do they mention that anywhere else? Okay, I think I might be reading into this too much, but that kind of looks like they're hinting what the expansion's called. Okay, moving on. This will not have a base output for each industrial types, which means that regardless of the energy, you will always have at least this much output from the factories. They might actually imply that might be the code name for the next expansion, or that might be the code name for the patch, because each patch has a code name as well. So it could be either of those, or it could just be a weird coincidence that person thought that those words at the exact point, but it doesn't reference anything else in the dev diary unless I missed it. And there will be a fully powered output values for factories. Depending on the energy ratio you are providing, you will end up somewhat above scale. If you have 50% energy, you'll be getting an output that is 50% away from the base output from the upscaled amount. All previously mentioned construction speed, dockyard, factory output will also be scaled according to the percentage of the energy being used. In this circumstance, we can see there's 10 of 20 mills being used, 14 of 15 civil naval dockyards, 10 of 21 civilian factories, and you can see that the energy level ratios are here. It shows building powered IC, military IC, naval AC, energy to demand, and energy received. It's going to be one of those moments, guys, where I feel like I don't fully engage with this. I don't fully click with it. I can kind of see where they're going. When I get my hands on it, it'll be different. The current debug display allows you to see energy consumption as well as demand and how much it impacts the industry. In this case, we have 26.7% energy needs satisfied. That means that each of the civs provide 4.2 daily, MIC provides 3.7, etc., etc. Of course, as usual, reminder all these values are subject to change. While this post is a short one, impact from adding this system could change the course of the game massively. This throws off the multiplayer meta for everything. And of course, they're very, very open to opinions and suggestions for this because this is just such a fundamental 10-point Richter scale change to the game overall. So I get the devs are being very cautious as they tiptoe into this one. Next dev diary, we'll be talking more about factions. All right, I have a lot of questions. Let's take off our reading hats and put on our theory hats. Do you ever feel with fuel it's not a big deal because all you do is you pick a random nation like the Soviet Union or Venezuela or the United States and you just drag the barrel all the way to the right and inject a ton of fuel into your nation and then just fill the stockpiles up and then turn it off. And in most cases, you're just very careful where you place your planes, your navy, and your tanks, so therefore you don't consume much fuel. For me, I very rarely have fuel shortages in my game because it's so unbelievably easy to just import a ridiculous amount of fuel in a second and then fill your stockpiles. And to be fair with you, I can't recall the last time I had fuel issues other than just me forgetting about fuel and not looking at the icon at the top of the screen. Did you know what my fear is with this? If you're importing coal, you'll do the exact same thing. You'll just whack that scaler all the way to the right and just import a ridiculous amount of coal and just whack up your stockpile. But they've never mentioned anywhere in this dev diary that you can stockpile coal, so maybe you can't. Maybe it really is an in and out metric. And if you're not meeting your fuel needs, either with imports or domestic production, you are suffering from a penalty to your factories overall. So, once again, I'm just filling the gaps here, and it doesn't look like there is a stockpile mechanic, but seeing these icons here kind of just suggests a stockpile mechanic if it works the same way as fuel. But I can't be certain of that. I'm just guessing. But once again, I'll come back to what you guys. I'll ask you guys right now. Can you remember the last time you had an issue with fuel in Hoi 4? I can't remember it. Because once again, I just seem to import a ridiculous amount and then just ignore it. I think there should be a cap on how much you can inject into your fuel stockpiles. Because at the moment, I just feel like you can put too much in within a very short period of time. And therefore nullifying even the point of fuel. Does anyone feel me here? You know, like a battery, like a lithium battery has a maximum amount you can put into it at any certain point. That's why we'll never reach a point where you can charge, I don't know, a very, very large battery within 30 seconds because there's a maximum amount you can put in with a certain point. And I think there's a limit and it would cause the battery to overheat and explode if you try to put too much energy within a short period of time. And I feel like in a way, if you could imagine fuel as a charge of a battery, I feel like there should be a max amount you can put in and therefore you can never go over that amount. Because otherwise it just feels like you can just nullify the fuel mechanics. Anyway, my fear is the energy mechanics shouldn't work the same way because otherwise you just can get around the mechanics too easily. And I can feel myself doing that. Remember, I play in unconventional ways. I'm Feedback Gaming. Don't forget to subscribe to my main channel, by the way. Boop, boop, boop. And I would obviously find every possible opportunity to get around those mechanics. Let's get to the juicy stuff now, right? Never mind those dry fruits. Never mind those under-ripened, least voluptuous fruit. Let's talk about the juiciest of juicy. The ones that you bite into that peach and explodes with juice. We are going to be talking about the questions people are asking. Power projection in-game, interacting with the system. Everyone is talking about nuclear reactors and dams. Now, logically, dams are obviously a way of generating energy. In the game at the moment, they work a bit differently, though, because they also, dams allow you to increase building slot amounts, increase construction speed, and also resource allocation as well. They're a bit weird, though, because they can only be built through national focus, not actually domestically built. There is a mod that lets you build dams, by the way. And I have used it, but it's kind of weird building a dam in Yorkshire. What river am I damming that's big enough? It doesn't make sense. Coal does operate like other resources. It is a tradable one. As trade is a regular resource, it's subject to the excavation technologies. You can get more coal as the game progresses, naturally. It says civilian nuclear factories, reactors, and dams do interact with this system. They have to be very careful with this. The reason they're adding this mechanic to the game is to get rid of perpetual building, yeah? To create this remove that system of just building an unlimited amount of civilians and military factories or naval dockyards. So if they create a system where civilian nuclear reactors can just replace that position, I feel like it defeats the purpose a little bit. However, I do kind of like that dams exist for Germany, and there's potentially 2 of them you can get quite early in the game, and that will give Germany quite a lot of energy, which Germany needs a buffer early game anyway because of the way Germany's mechanics need to work based on their conquest early game. So I'm all for that. Just scared that this might give too much energy early on and therefore nullify the existing energy mechanics. You know what I mean? Do you feel me? Maybe the amount of energy you get from civilian nuclear reactors is going to be quite small because these are going to be basically the most infant, primitive nuclear reactors before the modern ones, you know? Because today, the amount of power you get from a nuclear reactor is astronomical. Huge amounts of power. But back in the days of World War II, well, not even World War II, I guess Cold War, early Cold War, the nuclear reactors didn't probably deliver as much power. Did they deliver as much, or was it like more risky, for instance? You know what? Don't know my homework on that one. Just theorizing. It's hard-coded making coal energy from coal, or is it possible to use any resource in mod to create energy? It's a bit too early to talk about modding, but the definite which resource is responsible for energy purposes. Okay. It just suggests that modding will be available for this, but it looks like using energy for fuel doesn't seem to be a thing. Be honest with you, if they mod in the ability to have stockpiling for resources, that means every resource could potentially be stockpiled, couldn't it? And then we've got Hearts of Iron 2 and 3, haven't we? The modders are going to love that, aren't they? Can you think about it? Every resource can be stockpiled? Yeah, that would be mega, wouldn't it? I'm not sure if I'm for that because I feel like that adds a level of complexity to Hoi 4 that I feel like doesn't really reflect Hoi 4 as a game. But I like the fact that the modders can do it if they want to. Do you get me? Could I mod it so that the same resource produces both energy and fuel in Lord of the Rings mod? It just make it sense for food to be used for military, rations, and civilian food. It's way too early to talk about modding. So, yeah, they're basically saying they don't know yet. It'd be very surprised to me if they didn't allow this to be a moddable mechanic, especially how the mods are really literally tapping into this kind of stuff. But there's just a call to the game. Could we have an option to run out of navy on that instead of oil? So you can run... So basically, you can have coal-powered ships, which is kind of more of a World War I thing. This represents how new engine modules, such as ships that have coal boilers, runs on fuel. And it just basically says no plans for that at the moment. If you play the World War I mod, they do have coal as a resource for ships, working the same way it works with fuel. But there's so much fuel at the start of World War I. There's like, you never run out of it. You can literally have your navies up all the time. Kind of a little bit OP, actually. This was a missed opportunity for Gotterdammerung to add uranium to the game to make nuclear capacities more realistic. I'll be fair with you. This is actually a cool suggestion because access to uranium isn't that easy, is it? And therefore, having it as a limited resource creates a cap on energy production from nuclear reactors, which the game desperately needs. Because think about it. Coal has a limit. When you've hit the coal limit, there is no more coal, yeah? But nuclear reactors don't have a limit, you know? You build a nuclear reactor, it's there permanently. It generates perpetual fuel, you know? It's an unlimited resource. But technically, it would need uranium, wouldn't it? But then again, nuclear reactors don't even need that much uranium, do they? I don't think they do. My understanding is that the amount that they need to power a nuclear power is very, very small. But then again, having a resource on the map would be interesting. Uranium would be a resource that probably doesn't matter at all until 1943-43. It's important to only increase or skyrocket after that date, making it a resource that's completely ignored at this first half of the game. I'm not a fan of adding a resource that would matter very little in the game. That's such a good answer. That's a good answer. Once again, at the end of the day, man, if most of Hoi 4's period does not have that thing, then why bother adding on? It's adding more complexity to the game for an element that's barely going to even get used. Will dams provide energy? Right now, dams and civilian nuclear reactors provide a reduction in energy factories. So it's not actually producing energy. What it's doing is it's driving a reduction, a passive reduction to the amount of energy factories produced on the map. Oh, no, actually in that state. That is so good. That is really good. I would have never have thought of that. So the idea is now you build a civilian factory, nuclear reactor, in a state that has a lot of factories, and that will have a net negative amount. Well, it's not a net negative, it's a percentage reduction in energy consumption for all factories in that state. Clapper seal, clap. That's so good. So let's say the modifier would amount to 25%, which is very generous. Factories located in each state, instead of consuming 100 energy, would consume 75 random numbers at this point. Oh, that is so good. I would have never thought of that. That is so good. Mentions about coal, it is a normal tradable resource. Can you prioritize energy consumption to different factory types or all evenly distributed? They're all evenly distributed, which is a weird thing to say because fuel at the moment, you can direct it. So it's kind of strange that they don't have the option for coal as well. Not sure if I'm a big fan of that. Is the feeling that the dev corner about carriers is going to be called aerodynamics? Because this one is called thermodynamics. Aha! I was here sitting and thinking that I ran out of ideas how to name future dev diaries. Truly from the depths of my heart, thank you. Well, I mean, this suggests that changing how planes work or carriers work. It suggests that's the case, guys. I really like the look of this. A simple, elegant way to add depth to the economic game. As a bonus, if you remember to add coal to Nova Scotia, I'll finally have a reason to invade my hometown. And there you go. He's added coal to Nova Scotia. How will the new energy systems interact with dams and nuclear reactors? Will they provide energy? That was mentioned earlier. Not sure the best approach, honestly. Could you get the player to build coal refineries on a tile of coal to increase the amount produced? And then optionally have companies that can assign to the state to boost certain resources, such as signing Krupp. Like in EU4, you can assign a state to have an old order to get a bonus of steel production for that state. Do you know what? That's actually a really interesting take. Wouldn't there be an actually cool mechanic in Hoi 4 if you could make your high command assign to a state and certain ones you assign to certain states give certain bonuses? That is actually a really good idea for the future. That's something they can really dive into. And what you can do is if you assign him into a state, he gives a specific bonus for specifically just that state. Maybe building refineries in that state, for instance. And it'd actually add an extra mechanic, wouldn't it? Where you move advisors around the country to have them focus on specific certain things. Or, for instance, if you don't assign them, they're in the high command and they just give a passive bonus for your entire nation. Paradox, I will wait for my check in the mail. Okay. I'm not even shy with this one, guys. This is the biggest change to Hearts of Iron 4 there has been ever. This is the biggest of the biggest. This is quality of life. I absolutely love this. This is amazing, amazing, amazing. I know we bash the devs quite a lot. I know things don't work out the way we planned in our heads. I get that. However, this is probably the best change I've seen in a while. There's going to be more of these changes coming. They're going to talk about these mechanics more as they flush them out as time goes on, which is fantastic. And if you want to see more of that content coming up, don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment below. And YouTube then knows to give you more of this kind of content when I release these kind of videos. Otherwise, you might miss this video and you might not see it again. And I don't want you to miss out. I love you. Don't miss out. Like, comment, subscribe. Apart from that, have a good day, Sue. Bye.